It would be very different if all of those things were made of wood. The world would be if cameras and computers were made of wood.
We didn't set out to make a plastic record. I wanted to make a romantic record about us as a couple and our 25th anniversary. And I said to Martin, that's what I want to do. And he said, well, that's really narcissistic and self-indulgent. No one cares. Don't do that. That's stupid. That's a stupid idea. And I thought, well, but I did want to do at least a record around some objects that were important to us. And the one that was on my mind was a plastic jock strap shaped like a fish, where I would put my genitals into it and like the tail would come out my butt and the fish's head was here.
He used to wear it when he was go-go dancing.
When I was a go-go dancer in the gay bars. So I thought, oh, that's interesting that this special object in our relationship was plastic, because most people are sentimental about a gold ring or a diamond ring or a lovely wooden, library of shelves, or I don't know. Plastic is shameful.
We are who we are. So of course we were like, oh, we should make a song out of it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do with things.
And then I started to think more about plastic, and it just sort of snowballed, It just seemed like, oh, maybe instead of doing something romantic about us, let's do something about plastic. And the more you think about plastic, the more you notice that it's everywhere. I'm looking at plastic buckets on the floor right over there that are being used to hold water to wash that motorcycle, which has lots of plastic components.
I was thinking there was a leak in the ceiling.
No.
And they were there to collect water.
The plastic guards on these lights, you just keep going, plastic is everywhere. But we're supposed to be ashamed of it because of the bad ecological impacts of plastic. And I think when there's ambivalence, there's something exciting and appealing about the convenience and the ease and the cheapness, but there's something depressing because it's we're stuck with this garbage that we created. There's nobody to blame but human beings. I think that ambivalence is interesting, and maybe that could lead to a good record. I don't know.
I often think as a sort of exercise, okay, if we were to get rid of it, what would we substitute it for? What would this world be like if we didn't do it all with plastic?
I think for us it's useful that records have two sides, and that you listen to one thing for 20 minutes and you turn it over and listen to it for another 20 minutes. And in a way, that flip from side one to side two is a chance to have a second thought. So for me, I feel like that's why the album is sort of positive and upbeat and poppy on the first half, and that it's kind of dystopian and depressing and a little scary in the second half. It's you're at first excited about plastic, oh, it's gonna help our life, and we're gonna have this futuristic, convenient, elastic space of possibility. And then in the second half, it's oh, but in fact, we're sort of constrained by it and we're stuck with it. We have the schmaltzy moment is the end of side one. The song Plastic Anniversary is my attempt to make that romantic, loving song about Martin that's sort of melodic. And then the counterpoint is oh, but plastic is used by police to protect the state. And there's plastic Ziploc ties that are used to arrest protesters, and you could go on and multiply ways that plastic is part of systems of domination, and indebtedness with predit cards, right?
Plastic. Do you take plastic?
Yeah. So it's a rich metaphor, and I think, yeah, it is ambivalent, because of course, if somebody stabbed me and I go to the hospital and I need blood, they're gonna use blood bags that are plastic. If I'm having sex with someone who's HIV positive, I want them to use a condom. I don't want to get HIV. So, okay, plastic, it's useful sometimes. It would be hypocritical to say, oh, I don't need it.
I learn a lot about our music when I read reviews of it. I realize it's totally true, this review I read, that it's like, it's happy, but it's sort of like, it's sort of like manic, insane happiness.
The fun for us is to transform something, to take something that belongs here and to move it over there, And so if something is a little like dégoûtant or disturbing, like plastic surgery, you don't transform it if you take plastic surgery and make it goth and scary. People are already scared of it. If you can take plastic surgery and make it like fun and happy, that's kind of interesting because it's being mutated and transformed in some way. And so for us, there's just more pleasure in moving something across a context rather than just relying on, what are its connotations? I mean, there are...
The truth is that we don't spend a heck of a lot of time worrying about, I think we just do that naturally. Like, we don't plan much.
There's definitely discordant or just odd pitches that are a little awkward and unpleasant and a little shrieky.
But that's just because we're bad musicians.
I don't know. It's also that when you start with noises rather than notes, we don't sit there and like tune the plastic container. Like, we work with whatever pitch it's in. And when things are slightly off from sweet, it has its own aura that is disturbing without needing to put a lot of gothic theatrics on it.
Please don't take my property away. Please, no, don't. I'm actually afraid of you. That's why I attack you, because of fear.
Martin makes videos that supplement some songs, and then for others it's about the object and getting people to just focus. So when we take out a record and we want people to look at this record and we break it and then sonify it, we want people to move from seeing to hearing, to kind of, it's such a visual culture, Instagram, everything is about a good life fantasy. And I think sound has to struggle a little bit now. Culturally.
If there are gonna be pictures supporting it, they'd better be there for a reason. But for years, like when we first started, people weren't coming to see us, the videos were a trick just to make people pay attention.
And stop talking.
Like if you flash, like when you're in a bar and someone has a TV set on behind them, and you're like, you can't look them in the eye because there's a fucking TV set. Like the same idea, like even if people wanted to look away, they'd be like, oh, there's a TV over there. Oh, a band. Oh, they're sampling objects and making wry commentary about the objects they're sampling. I love them, Matmos.
I think there's something childlike about the fact that when you give a kid a present, they might play with the present, or they might just take the box that the present was in and just play with the box. And I think similarly with us, like we get so much mileage out of whatever's around, and in thwacking it and stroking it and making something out of it. And that attitude towards objects is childish and childlike and is playful, if you will. On this tour, Martin finds a different plastic object in every venue that we go to. And so we're like going through the janitor's closets, like finding buckets or finding cups or finding a carton. We can get a lot of pleasure out of things that to most people are irrelevant or pointless or just not interesting.
I walk into a room and I can pretty much immediately see what you can play in it and want to do that. Yeah, it's play for me. And I do recognize that it does end up like we make sort of unserious music, and I think possibly there are certain ways, there are paths we cannot go down, and that's fine. There are paths that people who were in music academy for decades also can't go down. They can't let go of certain, you need different people to make different kinds of music.
I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. Like, since the 80s and the high point of like postmodernism, maybe people feel like, oh, we live in a time of apocalypse and struggle. We can't be ironic anymore. We can't be detached. That's bad. I don't know. I think for me, when we make like dance music, I don't have contempt for dance music. I love dance music, but I know that what I make is not quite gonna work as real deal functional dance music because
I think it might be more embarrassment. Seriously. Like that we aren't quite doing the thing, or we're afraid that we're not quite doing the thing that we want to be doing.
Yeah.
Like, is this really country music?
No.
Like
we're about halfway there most of the time. I like a lot of bands that are that way. Throbbing Gristle, Harumi Hosono, people whose attitude to genre is playful,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, to a certain extent, it is a reaction to over-seriousness about what is real. I don't know, I'm not kidding about any of the songs that we make. It's not ironic. Like, I'm not skillful enough to be ironic.
We're not Steely Dan. Steely Dan has a position of mastery with respect to the musical traditions that they reference. It's kind of like, are you looking at music from above or below,
Below.
I think we're definitely looking from below.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to use this to make a very satisfying doing, which can be sampled, of course.
Because we're 7 years apart, the records that he really loves and the records that I really loved were kind of different. He knew about Cluster and Brian Eno and John Hassel. And
it wasn't so everybody knows it. 25 years ago, Cluster was cool and obscure.
And I was listening to like Pussy Galore and Meat Beat Manifesto and like, Jungle. But we both really liked
so we had this thing
Pierre Henry
in common. This weird thing that we were both like, nobody else knows about this.
That's
but
the thing.
We know about it. And we definitely thought, let's do that thing.
Yeah.
We were definitely neither of us knew much about it.
Yeah.
It was just like when I was in high school, when I was like a weed smoking, 16-year-old, I'll never forget my best friend Kevin bought Microphony, the Stockhausen, and he was like, this is on that classical label, Deutsche Grammophon, and look, it looks like a classical record, but look at the back and what they're doing. What the fuck is this gonna sound like? And I was like, wow, that's really brave that you bought this boring looking classical record. And we put it on, and that is a noise.
Wow. Sounds so good. Nice. I have a Derek Bailey record where there's a rainy roof and he's playing in a space with a super rainy roof and it sounds so good. This is nice.
Yeah. And we were like, we loved Throbbing Gristle and like early SPK and stuff like that. And we were just blown away that it's kind of noisier than those things. It's really bravely just like scraping and howling. And there's people in tuxedos doing it. And we were like, oh, there's a bigger world than we thought. We had no idea.
It's not just like rock music and the weird rock music. It's like, no, there's just weird sound that goes way outside.
Yeah, the promise of really smart people who were into non-pitched music was so exciting.
And
to me. It's why I wear the. I just slammed the microphone. Sorry. It's why I wear a tie. Always.
To look
it's
like one of those
I want
old
to
records?
look like one of those. I want to look like an electronic musician should look.
From the early 60s.
You know, I'm forever posing with my modular synth going.
I think, honestly, to break it down, like having concrete in common, like when you're gay, right? There's like 100 people, but only, 5 out of those 100 are gay. And so that means that all of those ones that are gay are into like really boring mainstream shit. And so if you find a gay person who also is into like the weirdest music there is in the world, like you've kind of found this unicorn of rarity. And that's what it felt like to meet Martin and be like,
It's
oh, wow.
actually, I'm holding the unicorn's horn.
So yeah, it just seemed to cement my sense that like Martin was the one,
Thank you, Pierre Henry,
Thanks, Pierre Henry.
for our love.